When Elon Musk bought Twitter, he promised to make the social media platform a haven for free speech. Tonight, that commitment's going to be challenged in court by the Australian government, as the eSafety Commissioner has demanded footage of last week's Sydney church stabbing be removed from the platform.
So Lucy, yesterday morning we heard some very strong language come from Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese about Elon Musk, who is of course one of the richest people in the world.
That's right.
This arrogant billionaire who thinks he's above the law, but also above common decency.
So those comments we just heard related to X's, which is previously known as Twitter, X's legal challenge to a request by Australia to take down videos of a stabbing. Can you break this all down for us? What is going on?
Yes, as we'd all remember, last Monday, police allege a 16-year-old boy stabbed Bishop Marmari Emmanuel at Christ the Good Shepherd Church in Wakeley in Sydney's western suburbs during a live-streamed service. Because of the live stream, footage of the alleged incident spread across multiple social media platforms. And in response, Australia's eSafety Commissioner ordered Meta, which owns Facebook and Instagram, and X, aka Twitter, to take down that footage.
And we should mention that this was, of course, only days after the Bondi stabbing.
That's right.
But because this church stabbing was live streamed, that's why this request by the eSafety Commissioner is very specific about the church one.
Exactly, yes. And it's there's graphic footage that was immediately quite freely available on social media.
Yeah, I'm sure many people listening have probably seen it. It was available everywhere as soon as it happened. So we talked about the eSafety Commissioner, who is the person or the agency that has made this request of X. Can you explain who is or what is the eSafety Commissioner?
Yeah, so it's both a title and it's a government agency. So the title of eSafety Commissioner is held by Julie Inman Grant, and she also heads the eSafety Commissioner Agency, which is Australia's independent regulator of online safety. So for simplicity, let's just say eSafety going forward. eSafety was established in 2015 and got a major boost in its powers following the live-streamed terror attack in Christchurch in New Zealand in 2019. So eSafety can issue warnings to online services like social media platforms to remove abusive or dangerous content online, and that also extends to content that would offend a reasonable adult. According to media outlet Capital Brief, Meta did comply with eSafety's notice. According to X's Global Government Affairs team, they also complied, but not intending to do so permanently.
So clearly X has an issue here, and I think to the average person it would seem a little strange that X has this video circulating on its platform of a person getting stabbed and they don't want it to be taken down. So what's their reasoning behind that?
So first of all, they said the video of the stabbing, quote, did not violate X's rules on violent speech, and that they believe, quote, eSafety's order was not within the scope of Australian law. They said they'd comply pending a legal challenge. And I'll just note, at the time of recording this podcast, I could still see an unpixelated video of the stabbing on X if I clicked past a warning about graphic content. So compliance, they've said they're going to comply, but as of recording, I could see it.
Right.
Their main argument appears to be that Australia's eSafety Commissioner, quote, does not have the authority to dictate what content X's users can see globally, and that global takedown orders go against the very principles of a free and open internet and threaten free speech everywhere. So we're really seeing this idea of like an Australian law on a global platform. What kind of impact does that have? And that's also been backed up by Elon Musk, the owner as well, who's posted a lot in the last 24 hours about how this would be allowing Australia to, quote, censor the entire world.
Hello, I'm James and I produced the video you're watching. If you're enjoying what you're watching, we'd love it if you considered subscribing and checking us out on our other platforms. It'd really help in getting the word out about what we're doing here at TDA. Thanks very much, and now back to the deep dive.
Right, so I think I understand it more now. So the main issue that X has is that Australia is requesting that this video be taken down for all users globally, not just the users in Australia.
Yes, that's like their key argument. They're saying that one country's laws shouldn't necessarily dictate what users in other countries can see. And they say that this comes down to free speech. So they're also saying that blocking harmful videos is an infringement on freedom of speech.
And I think you mentioned before that the legal challenge is starting to play out tonight. So what's happening?
That's right. So this is all going to be something for the courts to decide. On Monday night, eSafety won the right to compel X to hide the videos for 2 days. And then the matter will actually be back in court tonight at the end of that 2-day period. So I think it'll be really interesting to see how this case is actually argued, because in Australia, we don't actually have a right to freedom of speech in our constitution.
Yeah, that's really interesting because you hear so much about freedom of speech in the US, but it's a key point that in Australia we don't have that constitutional right protected in the same way. Can you explain more about that concept of freedom of speech?
Totally. So freedom of speech, or freedom of opinion, freedom of expression, is the right to hold and express opinions without restriction. So the UN Convention on Civil Rights says, quote, "This right shall include freedom to seek, receive and impart information and ideas of all kinds, regardless of frontiers, either orally, in writing or in print, in the form of art or through any other media." So that generally doesn't extend to hate speech or expressions that could incite hate. You might think of it as the right to post a TikTok that says, "I hate the government," without fearing that you'll be sent to jail over it. But if you posted a TikTok saying, "Let's all go attack Parliament House at 10 a.m. on Tuesday because I hate the government," that would be where you would run into trouble.
Right.
So what's interesting is that Elon Musk has lived almost his entire adult life, and certainly his whole professional life, in the United States, which does have a right to freedom of speech enshrined in its constitution, which Australia does not, even though we're a party to UN conventions that protect it. So it'll be really interesting to see how a freedom of speech argument stacks up here.
And I feel like this is not the first time Musk has spoken about freedom of speech. I remember when he bought what was then Twitter, he talked a lot about it kind of being seen as this modern town square for people to speak their opinions. So this kind of follows on from that.
Yes, I did a lot of research into this because I really wanted to try and understand why this man, who's a tech CEO who has tried to be an innovator, cares so much about this legal concept. So based on my research, the first time he ever was reported as talking about it was in 2018. He told US news show 60 Minutes that freedom of speech was fundamental. And that actually came in response to US authorities suing him for false and misleading statements about Tesla, the electric car company that he's the CEO of, which they alleged had the effect of making its stock price jump up. The first time he tweeted about free speech was actually in January 2021.
Which actually isn't that long ago.
No, but it really feels like longer.
Yeah.
He suggested that, quote, West Coast high tech, so meaning his fellow Silicon Valley billionaires, were becoming the, quote, de facto arbiters of free speech after Trump was banned from Twitter before he owned it, following the January 6th Capitol riots. And so my analysis is that after this happened, he decided you can beat them and join them by taking over Twitter in pursuit of unrestricted free speech. And that's what's led us to today.
It's a super interesting case and one that will be playing out this week. I'm sure there will be a lot of headlines in the media and possibly international media because, of course, this is a global story. Lucy, thank you so much for explaining it all.
Thanks so much for having me, Billy.
And thank you so much for listening to The Daily Oz. If you would like to help us grow, if you can click follow on Spotify or Apple, that would be a huge help. And we will see you again tomorrow.